Hello and welcome back to Hadoop Exam Learning Resources. In this session, I'm going to cover question number 25 from AWS Solution Architect Professional Level. These questions are provided by hadoopexam.com. These are practice questions which would help you to understand and learn more, and you can implement the same logic during your real exam as well as real-time work when you work in an organization to implement a solution based on the AWS. So now let me go to question number 25 directly and let's discuss. So quicktechie.com website is hosted on AWS and having the database and the application server in VPC. Correct, that is what they are saying. This is a MySQL database which you should be able to upgrade or apply patches on the internet. However, please note that no external request can be received from the internet on this database. How will you set up this kind of configuration? So if you try to understand what exactly this question is trying to do, ask you basically, you have a one VPC here basically, correct, and in this VPC you have your my database installed basically, correct. I would say rather like this kind of architecture, and there is a basically web server as well. So on this, so this kind of configuration exists, and this database cannot directly interact with the internet, correct. So and patch is available, you have to download from internet and install it on this database. How would you solve this kind of problem basically, correct? That is what the question is asking. So this is not directly possible. So now let me go to explanation, and then we'll come back to answer this question, correct. So let's go first on explanation. So now let's start. First talk about route table or route table, you can say here. Basically by design each subnet must be associated with the route table, which we have already learned previously, correct. Subnet cannot exist without a route table, that is a mandatory. How route table is available, that depend, you can create your custom route table, or you can use a default route table of provided on the VPC level itself, which specifies the what routes are allowed for outbound traffic leaving the subnet. That is what in defined in the route table. What is main route table? Main route table, as we discussed, whenever you get or create a VPC, by default a route table is created, and that route table is called main route table, which is attached to your VPC basically, correct. So if this is your VPC, and so as soon as you create, there is a one route table would be created for this, and that is called main route table. Now there in main route table you can either update this itself and customize this, or you can create a new route table, and that you can attach to this subnet if you wanted to have their different route table for this, correct. That is what you can do here as well. So you can change the association, you can change the contents of the main route table. Now the question is asking, my database is in the where basically it's in private subnet. How would I update this? So for this, usual solution is in net instances. What is net instances? Network address translation. That is what called basically, because it's translate your address if you try to understand. So in this example, the main route table is associated with private subnets and sends traffic from the instance in the private subnet to the net instances. So this is your main route table. If you see routes inside this, so this is my let's assume it my SQL database is installed here basically, and I wanted to apply patch on this database from the internet. This is my internet connection, correct. So what we are saying is any traffic, so this is your 10.0.0.16, that is the main route table for entire VPC. So any traffic is destined to this IP addresses is local to VPC. So in a VPC it can go to that host, correct. With this CIDR range it is local to this, but any traffic which is destined to which destination is to 000, which is internet basically, so it should not go to net instance ID, correct. So net instance ID you need to set up, and you have to provide this. So net instance ID you generally set up in a different subnet, that is public subnet basically. That is what. So this is your main route table. So any traffic which is destination is this would go to net instance ID, and on this subnet level we have created a custom route table. So what does it mean? Any traffic 10.0.0.16 again is local traffic, so it goes to locals VPC only, but any traffic which is destined to 0016 should go to internet gateway, means internet. So what does it mean? this any request you are sending from this subnet to internet, it first go to network instance ID on this host. Basically this is your net instance ID, and from net instance ID this would be translated and sent to the internet gateway via router. Basically you would send it. So that is what the network address. Any response back to this would come to the net instance ID, and net instance ID will transfer back this response to the this subnet. Correct. So the main route table is associated with the private subnet and sends the traffic from the instances in private subnet. So this is your private subnet to the net instances in the public subnet. So this is your public subnet and this is net instances. The traffic goes to the net instance, sends this traffic to the internet gateway for the VPC. Now they would send it to the internet gateway basically. Correct. The traffic is attributed to the elastic IP address of the net instances. So this net instance has the elastic IP addresses. The net instance specifies higher number of ports for the response. If the response comes back, the net instances send this it to private subnet based on the port number in the response basically. Correct. That would be so basically you send request to net instance ID, net instance ID send to internet gateway send your patch back to net instance ID transfer this patch to the private subnet, and that your database can install this patch. Correct. That is way it works. Internet traffic from the instances in the private subnet is routed to the net instances, which then communicate with the internet. Therefore the net instance must have an internet access. So net instance must have an internet access. It must be in a public subnet because it has an internet gateway associated. It become a public subnet, and a subnet that has a route table with a route to the internet gateway, it then only it called a public subnet. Sorry. And it must have a public IP address or elastic IP address. So here we have a elastic IP address to net is associated. So that is a must again. So that is an basically based on this. Let's go to question back. What is the answer option? Set up MySQL DB in private subnet. That is right. With a security group allowing only outbound traffic. So this does not solve the problem basically. Correct. Only outbound traffic you are allowing, and basically we don't want to just send a request and don't want to respond back. Basically this is not an ideal solution, and this would not support because this is a private subnet. Set up MySQL TV in a public subnet. So public subnet means internet gateway is required. But why do you want to install your MySQL database in public subnet? This should never be done basically until and unless there is an absolute need for that. So MySQL DB should not be in your public subnet. So this is absolutely not an answer. Set up MySQL DB in a local data center and use a private gateway to connect to application with DB. That is again a private. Why do you? We are talking about AWS, so local data center doesn't seem a logical solution here. So set up MySQL DB in private subnet which is connected to the internet via net outbound. So that is the solution, ideal solution for AWS test. So let me submit this answer, and this is your correct answer, and this is an explanation which you need to read it again. So that is what about this question number 25. So you need to understand the uses of the net instances, that is network address translation. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope you like this video. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe it, and also please visit hadoopexam.com for more detail about this question and answers and more learning material about AWS or any other technology. Thank you. I'm stopping now.